Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Commitment to Growth podcast today. This is your host, Mariana, speaking, and thank you so much for coming back and tuning in to another episode of the show. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back. It is so lovely to be with you all here today. How are you? How are you doing? I hope this episode finds you well, wherever you are, whatever time of the day it is for you, whatever point in your day you are. Thank you so much for tuning in and choosing the Commitment to Growth podcast as your daily source of wisdom. I am so happy. I am recording this intro segment today from the comfort of my grandmother's home in Mexico City. I finally finished my school semester and my family and I made our way down here to spend just over 2 weeks with our family, and then my sister and I are going up to Puerto Vallarta, which is one of the beach towns here in Mexico, with our dad, and I could not be happier. There is something so beautiful and so powerful about coming back to, if you're an immigrant like I am and you're living somewhere other than your home country, there is something so powerful and so beautiful about coming back to your roots and just reconnecting with the parts of you, and by that I mean family and culture and food and music, that is such a key part of who we are. And it's tuning back into my culture and really getting familiar with it and really noticing what aspects of my culture I carry deeply within myself as it pertains to mannerisms, behavior, values, has been such a key focus for me in these last couple of weeks as I've been doing a lot of inner work. My therapist focuses a lot on decolonization therapy, so kind of focusing on the practices and traditions that were present before the colonization periods and how those got erased and how they still play a part in who we are today. So this trip has been so healing for me. It has been so awesome for me to just tune back in, to see my family, to ask my family questions about our story and our history. And as you can tell, I'm really happy. And I feel very privileged to say that I don't even have my fancy recording software on here. I don't really know if you can tell. I'm actually recording this on my phone. So this is the one quiet time in the day that I found. Everybody went out to the supermarket and I just asked to stay behind and record this because I absolutely could not wait to publish this episode and share this amazing conversation with the world, because this conversation just flipped me on my head, flipped me upside down, and I took so much away from this amazing talk that I had with Karen Lang, who is our guest here today. Now, if you tune into the last episode, you know that the last episode that I shared with you with my beautiful close friend Malcolm Reese was a recording from a live conversation that we did on the Wisdom app, where, for those of you that don't know, it is kind of a podcasting / live talk platform, and I am very happy to say that I'm one of the top mentors, top conversationalists on that app, and I'm on there decently regularly hosting conversations where I ask questions of the day and I get guests to hop on and help me answer them. And I ask people to help me answer some of life's big questions. I just pose some pretty deep questions on there and guests hop on and help me answer them. So it's awesome. I even hosted a feminism roundtable the other day and the turnout was great. I felt like I had really constructive conversations. So if you're looking for a platform to connect with more people, if you're a podcaster or you're just somebody that really likes to tune into live conversations on growth and personal development and a variety of topics, I highly suggest hopping on Wisdom. And if you happen to be on there while I'm having one of my conversations, I would love to talk to you. So with all that being said, this conversation with Karen Lang is a live conversation that we had on Wisdom 2 weeks ago now, I believe, as I'm recording this. And it was so incredible. It was so profound. Karen is so well versed in what she does, and I could not think of anybody better to speak to spirituality and mindfulness about than Karen, which is why I absolutely had to share this conversation with you all. So to kind of give you a sense of who Karen is a certified counselor, Reiki practitioner, energy healer, and mentor. She is also a fellow top conversationalist and top mentor on the Wisdom app. And she is the author of 2 books, one called Moving Moments, Transform Your Suffering into Freedom, and Courage, My Journey Through Grief After the Death of Our Child. Her story is incredible. Karen lives in Queensland, Australia, and she is an incredible person, somebody that I had the privilege of having such valuable conversations with on Wisdom about life, about mindfulness, about spirituality. And in this conversation, we talked about her journey into that, how she started her practice as a counselor, and how she turned mindfulness and spirituality from something that used to help her just survive and get through the day into something that she implements now into her daily life, and it helps her find focus, it helps her feel grounded, and it helps her connect with more people, and that's how she helps people along their own journey. So I am super duper excited to share this with you today, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Before I do that, I do want to respectfully acknowledge that today I am coming to you from the land that is colonially known as Mexico City, but is the land of the traditional Nahuatl peoples, who continue to have a relationship to the land to this day. I am so honored to be here. I'm so honored to call this land my homeland, the place where I find my roots. And although most of the emphasis of my work in land back and supporting Indigenous communities has been in the land of the Wasanich peoples, where I reside in Victoria, BC, I look forward to also bringing conversation to the disparities that exist here in Mexico City as well, because the Indigenous communities here suffered a very similarly tragic loss of their land and loss of their culture when the colonization of this land occurred by the Spaniards. And I really look forward to having this also be a focus of my work and to continue to encourage you to look at your homeland if you're an immigrant, just like I am, and ask yourself how the Indigenous communities there suffered as a result of colonization as well. So, with that all being said, thank you again for being here, and here is my conversation with the beautiful, the one and only Karen Lang. And looks like we are live. Hi everyone, happy, oh my gosh, what day is it? Today is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you're all doing wonderful. It's lovely to be here with you today. I hope it is just as sunny where you are as it is where I am today. It's a beautiful day to be here together, learning and growing, and I am so excited to be here with you today, as always, but also to be speaking with the amazing guest that I have the privilege of connecting with today. Her name is Karen Lang, and I've had lots of opportunities to talk to her before on this platform, but today we get to have a more planned, structured, well, not so structured, but I guess formal conversation together that's more uninterrupted. So I am super excited to be bringing her on today. So I'm going to do that right now. And we are going to dive into all things mindfulness and spirituality. So have a notebook and a pen out and your listening ears ready, because I am so excited. Hi, Karen.
Good morning from here and afternoon for you over there.
It is. My goodness, it's Wednesday for you. That's right. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you so much. I love talking to you. I think the honor is talking to you and your
Oh
beautiful
my goodness.
energy. And yeah, absolutely. No,
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
there's no interviewing here. It's just bouncing off each other and each other's energy. So it's a privilege.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. This is not formal. This is just a conversation as always. So
Yeah.
thank you. How is your Wednesday going so far? I guess it just started.
Yeah, just well, it's 8 in the morning, and yeah, it's beautiful. It's not so beautiful and sunny here, which it normally is, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful day anyway. So because I'm talking about my favorite subject in my whole life, and my passion is
Yay.
mindfulness and spirituality. So yay!
Yay. I'm so excited. Whereabouts in Australia are you?
I'm in Queensland, which is
Okay.
yes, on the east coast, and it's beautiful and mostly sunny. But we do get lots of rain during the sort of summer seasons as well. So it's a beautiful
Mm.
part, beautiful beaches. I'm very lucky. It's an amazing landscape to live on, and it has really big, deep energy here, which I'm sure every land does. But yeah, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's funny because I guess we swap weather because here in the summer season it's very warm and hot, which was
Mm.
quite unusual here. It usually rains for us here the whole year, so I guess we're
Oh,
swapping weather right now. But the temperature's getting up. It's super nice. It's sunny today, and it's just the best feeling. So I apologize that we have sent you our rain.
are you in Seattle? Like, oh, that's the only place I know that's always raining. Where are you?
I'm very close. I'm just a boat ride away from Seattle. I'm in Victoria, BC, Canada,
Uh-huh.
actually. So it's a little island.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where
So
I am
even
right
we know
now.
about the rain over here, where that is.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, we're not I guess we're not that far. We're both kind of on an island or on the coast at least.
Yes, we are. We are. So
Yeah.
beautiful.
It is so beautiful. Let's dive in. I'm super
Mm.
excited to be talking about this topic today because just like it's very close to your heart, it is also very close to my heart. So why don't we start off? Why don't you tell us what mindfulness and spirituality mean to you personally?
Mm. So where do you begin with that? I guess if I start off with the journey, I guess
Let's do it.
what created some space for me to learn about mindfulness and spirituality was after the death of our son. And so
Mhm.
I really had to slow down and start coping with my grief and start understanding who I was in it. And I couldn't
Mm.
think of any other way to do it because living the way I was, which was busy in my mind and perhaps my life, wasn't
Mhm.
going to sustain my ability to move into my grief and to learn how to work through it. So I was kind of forced
Mhm.
into mindfulness and spirituality without really wanting to. It wasn't like I
Mm.
woke up and went, I really want to learn about this. It was like forced upon me because I wasn't coping with life the way I used to live it and the enormity of suffering with grief. So I guess for
Mhm.
some people, the beginning of their mindfulness spiritual journey would be a hunger to know more about themselves, about life, whereas mine started off as a need to survive.
Mm.
And I guess it doesn't really matter how you come into it, but it matters how you go through it and learn about it.
Yeah, that's so important because I think that it always piques my curiosity to hear how people got into things and how I guess the meaning of certain practices have changed for them. So,
Yeah.
how did it become a survival mechanism? How did it go from a survival mechanism for you to what you practice now? Like, what would you call it now?
Yeah, I say a survival mechanism to a passion, to a
Oh,
deep
yeah.
understanding of life. Yeah, because I found relief in it, because I
Mm,
found parts of uh, who I really was through it, and because I
mm-hmm,
understood that this was a pathway that was going to open up things that I never understood about life. So it was, I guess it started off with a yoga class, then went through to a meditation class that went through some stillness. But what the biggest discovery of all was spending time in nature. I couldn't believe
mm,
how good I felt after being in the harmony and the vibration of nature. And I guess that was new for me. I hadn't done that before. I hadn't thought about sitting in, the forest or near a river or near the beach. Like I hadn't thought of those things before. And
mm-hmm,
so those really calmed my energy. The vibration and the harmony of sitting in nature started to realign with who I really am. And so
mm.
that was a really beautiful discovery as well in my mindfulness. And hence why I put 1,000 pictures of nature, on my Instagram post.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
it's something I love that you bring up nature because I think I've realized recently that it's something that I take so for granted as living on the coast here.
Mm.
Like I love nothing more than going for a walk along the beach because I live right by the Pacific Ocean as well, so it's super close all the time. And there's all this research now about I think the most recent one I heard recently is that there are certain shapes in nature that are geometrical and
Yes.
induce some kind of psychological effect that makes us feel at ease. And now they're talking about the effect of awe, of just inducing more awe experiences in your life that bring you in
Hmm.
touch with yourself and with your surroundings. So I think it's such a great reminder to not take those things for granted. And personally, I now living here, I don't think I can live anywhere else but the coast. I don't know if that's reciprocated on your end, but it's I can't imagine myself anywhere else.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find the resonance of that vibration within you. And of course, the beach for me is that, and it could be the river for someone else. And it's interesting to see even ancestral lines. Sometimes when I've done
Mm,
ancestral healing on people, I have found that their resonance to the river is in their lineage, or their resonance to
mm,
the forest is in their lineage. So find the spaces in nature that feel connected to, and stay there, because the vibration of you is in line with the harmony and the vibration of nature. So that's why we feel good,
mm,
because it's our natural state of being. So when we're sitting in that beautiful vibration, which you don't even need to do anything. You don't have to go, oh, I'm just going to tune into the vibration. You just have to sit in the vibration. And the more that
mm.
we do that, the more expansive the vibration of our natural state of being becomes. It's really powerful.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that you use the ancestral approach because it's something that I recently started working with a therapist that has a decolonization approach. So she focuses
Mm-hmm.
on, really getting her clients in tune with their ancestral roots, basically everything that came before the colonization period. So in
Yes,
my
yes.
case, being from Mexican heritage, it's very, what did Aztec and Mayan tribes do? What still resonates in your family that is tied to those lineages? And I think that it's brought me really close to myself and it's made me understand myself in a very
Mm-hmm.
fundamental way. And you brought
Mm-hmm.
up the point about staying in that vibration. So how do you know if you're in the vibration and how do you get yourself to stay there?
Because, or how do you know? Because we love it.
No,
We
well
just
said.
love. Because I
Absolutely.
when I when I go to the beach, I feel expanded, I fall in love with it, and it doesn't matter how many times I go. I mean, I love the river too, and I feel really still by the river, but when I'm at the beach, I feel invigorated and alive, and that's how you know. So if you go into the forest and you think, oh my God, you feel, I mean, don't underestimate. Sometimes some of the environments that you're in are trying to reveal some things that you haven't perhaps healed or seen in yourself. So it's not always comfortable in nature. I remember sitting in the bush one day thinking, oh
Mm,
my God, all these ants are going to bite me. And what was that
mm,
noise? And, like, I
mm-hmm,
think the initial uh, feeling comfortable in nature can sometimes be uncomfortable at first, but as you get into the rhythm and the vibration of it, you'll start to see things in yourself. But I think the just the natural, I love that part of nature is where you probably reside.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Somebody asked me yesterday like how I can't remember the exact question, but it was something about how can you tell like how what was your best piece of advice for somebody who's trying to get in tune with themselves or like trying to notice their
Hmm.
what's going on underneath all the noise, I think it was something like that. And I said
Yeah.
focus on how your body reacts to your surroundings. Like, do you get expansive when you go to the beach, or if you're in a bush, do you find yourself
Yeah.
contracting inward? Because I think our bodies hold so much wisdom around that.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yeah.
deep rooted beliefs and intuitive feelings that we fail to pick up on because of all the noise. And so I love that you kind of take that embodiment approach into your mindfulness practice and focus on, hey, what is my bodily reaction telling me about what's going on underneath per se? Because it's so important. It's such an intimate way to get to know ourselves really.
Mm, so true. And so, a really good indication of this is that nature is always moving. There's always movement going on in nature. And that's uh, one of the reasons I called my book Moving Moments. But what I found
Mm,
is that when I'm sitting still, in that constant movement and transformation in nature, is that it reveals in me what isn't moving. And I think that's maybe the thread to why we feel uncomfortable when we're sitting still, because there's this
Mm.
constant movement and generation and evolving in the natural state. When we're sitting there still, whether it's at the beach or in the bush or near a river, it can reveal what's not moving in us. And that could be what we feel is uncomfortable.
Mm. Oh, that's such an interesting perspective. I've never heard it be talked like that.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us more. Tell us more.
Okay, so I felt a lot of fear when I was sitting in, what I was speaking about before. When I first started sitting in nature, I felt anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that the bush is creating anxiety in me. It means that the bush is revealing in me that there's anxiety. It's like the opposite. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in a conscious vibration of movement, like nature, it's showing me what isn't moving easily in me. That's how I feel. So I'm suggesting that if you don't like sitting still, there's something that's not moving in you, and that's what it's revealing, which is uncomfortable. But it could be anxiety, it could be fear, it could be anger,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be an ancestral wound that needs to be looked at and opened up and perhaps moved through. So, this is the power of sitting still and allowing your body and the wisdom of that body to reveal the energy that is within you, and then to
Mm-hmm.
see what it is that you can maybe see. And I think when you really look at it, as you perhaps have seen this in your own life, you start to understand what it is. I don't think we go, oh, wow, I didn't know I was anxious. Like I think it's kind of already there. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those vibrations or certain people kind of bring that up for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is music to my ears because this is what I love talking about and what I love so much about entering spirituality because I think that it, as much as it can be uncomfortable, it brings up things that
Yeah.
are unbeknownst to us or that we're not
Yeah.
aware with, and
Yeah.
it blows my mind every single time how wise our bodies are and how they are always working to serve us and our minds too, really.
Yeah.
Where I find that I really struggle is in, I think, beginning to dive into those uncomfortable emotions. I think starting is the hardest part because where I get stumped is what questions should I be asking myself to, I guess, provoke, more awareness or other sensations that could, make my path a little bit clearer. Because I think that my problem right now is I think I tend to just go all in super quickly, and it can be really overwhelming when you either don't get a response or you get over flooded with too much all at once.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
how do you, I guess, either guide people through that process or how do you go through that process yourself in a way that's, healthy and not overwhelming per
Yeah.
se?
Yeah, well, I think the first step is to take some time before you're going to make a decision, or when you're about to make a decision, take some time to just sit with it. So I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely know that feeling of getting excited. I get very excited about something and then I'll jump in like you and then realize I probably didn't think it through very well. And so I'm getting much better at perhaps if I'm going to make a decision about something creative that I want to do, to perhaps sit with it for a few days and just to see what
Mm-hmm.
comes up, because I think rushing in perhaps isn't letting us have some time to feel into our body wisdom, which is going to be in tune with our truth. I've always said the
Mm.
body does not lie, because it doesn't. And so perhaps
No.
when we're when we're feeling an anxiety or an excitement, just to sit with it, and perhaps the question could be, where is this in my body that I'm feeling? So it could be in our stomach, there could be a knot,
Mm-hmm.
and or there could be our heart racing, or it could be a headache, or just to tune in. The question is, where am I feeling this in my body? Or is this something that I need to do quickly, or can I do this over a few days? Because time will wait for you, spirit will wait
Mm-hmm.
for you. And I think the rushing is because we will miss out. The rushing is our mind telling us that if we don't do it now, then something bad will happen. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to trust that time will wait, and it'll be, there's always a perfect time. Even if you decide today that it's not the right time, and it is, another time will come up. So it's more important to perhaps sit and question, what is my body feeling about this situation, and where in my body is that? And then you can start to unpack some of the stories that may be surrounding this activity that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so reassuring because I find myself being one of those people that is, as soon as I put my finger on something that I think I need to be healing or an insecurity that I need to be addressing, I'm very much about just getting it done with right away, or just addressing it all the time, or feeling guilty when I'm not thinking about it because I'm like, well, this could just get done if I just go all in right now. But
Yeah.
I think it's a very important reminder that time is the best, I guess, healer of wounds. And sometimes that's all you can work with because you're not always going to have the answers as to how to heal those wounds or to how to address those beliefs or insecurities, right? So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for bringing that up because I think it's something that a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah, I think we don't give ourselves enough time or trust in our body enough to realize that it's giving us some signals. And perhaps
Mm-hmm.
the anxiety can be misread. I'd say anxiety can be misread because sometimes it takes courage to step into your truth, and you may have a feeling of anxiety about it because you don't believe you can do it. And then there's the anxiety or the intuition that this doesn't feel right. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
fine tuning of those two things, because you can say, oh, I'm feeling really anxious, maybe I shouldn't do that. But that could just be the fear of not stepping into your truth. And then the
Yeah.
anxiety of saying, I feel really off about this situation and I'm actually going to step back, or I'm not going to go, or I'm going to make a different decision. I think that just takes practice and patience to tune into what that is. And the confusion is sometimes it's hard to make a decision with those two things going on, but practicing and stepping into it and learning from it is how you get good and confident about what your energy is doing.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard, right? Because I think that there's a lot of times that we don't want to acknowledge that the truth is our truth. Like, be it you are thinking about ending a relationship, or you are thinking about ending a friendship or quitting a job or something, because it feels
Yeah.
comfortable, it's hard to admit that it may no longer serve you or that it's no longer in alignment with you, and stepping out of that comfort or that security is so hard. It's so hard.
Mm. Yeah, you're making a really good point here. And so that's what I'm saying. We're ignoring what we should be doing with the story in our mind. And you really need to separate why you.
Oh, I think we lost you there for a second, Karen. Looks like your mic is off.
Oh, sorry. when
No, you're all good. You're
Sorry,
all
the
good. You're
phone.
back.
Yeah. I think you're confusing sometimes the story with your mind about wanting something, but your body is clearly showing you, or your intuition is showing you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
so,
Oh,
oh,
there
what
we
is that?
I think we lost you for a second again, but you're back. You're back.
Oh, right. Oh, hang on. Someone is talking. Let me just get out of here for a minute. I
Yeah,
can hear
take your
someone
time.
talking.
Okay, weird. No worries. No worries. We'll give it a second. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant point, and I think that what I've been learning a lot recently, especially with certain experiences, is that your body has, and I think I even read this on an Instagram post a few hours ago or a few days. I think it was definitely today. That your body has no problem screaming at you if you choose to
Yeah.
continuously and consistently keep ignoring it. And I've found myself in those positions a lot where I tend to hold on to the idea of something that I had held on to for the comfort of it in my head, but then reality hits, or life has a different plan, and you have to face letting go of that story. And it can be really hard when it's something that has been so comforting for so long, and then you find yourself being like, oh my gosh, now I have to find a different truth, now I have to write a different story. So how how do you help people start letting go of that story to step into a new truth?
Yes. Can you hear that talk going on in the background in
I
your
couldn't, I
on
could
my
not. No.
Oh, good, because I'm obviously somehow getting into a talk, a story about what's not working for them. I'm having a
Mm-hmm.
relationship problem, my parents' anger is bothering me, whatever it is that comes in, that that's when we start unpacking what belief systems, what thoughts, what energy are you giving to these stories that are from the
Mm-hmm.
past, always from the past. That's creating the issue in your what is. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly how we begin it. So, what problem are
Mm.
you having with someone or something? And then starting to see some of the stories and the energy that you give the thoughts around it.
Mm. Oh, that's so powerful. Just like doing that process of, I guess, like pushing away the clouds to this to get to the sky, which is like the ultimate truth of the situation, the fundamental of the situation.
Yeah, yes.
Mm.
And when you understand where those thoughts and beliefs came from, which is always our upbringing or our ancestral line, then we can
Mm-hmm.
start to unpack them and stop living through them, because we're supposed to transcend from that wounding. We're supposed to find out who we really are in this lifetime. And when we unpack that together, we start to see the truth and we start to let go of what's no longer serving us. It's as simple as that, but it's not so simple to let it go.
Mm-hmm. Oh my, no, it's the hardest part, and I love that you bring up the point about the fact that life is about unearthing ourselves, because I think recently what I've shifted my perspective and my opinion into when I people ask me, as a self-development podcast host, like what does self-development and growth mean to you? And I think I've shifted recently from putting the emphasis on, developing habits and skills to be the future self you want to be, into more of, I think it's more about unbecoming the things that are preventing you from being that version of yourself.
Yeah,
Because what I've found, and I don't know if this is your experience or if the experience of anybody else in the crowd that's listening, that when I do difficult things, when I have, be it difficult conversations with other people or with myself, or when I undergo like a spiritual practice of some kind, it's almost like it feels like I'm stepping into myself deeper. It's like there's a staircase in me and I'm
mm-hmm.
just like getting further and further down, and I feel more grounded and I feel more close to myself, which is so interesting. And I think why I've recently alluded to the idea that this journey that we're on is about coming home to ourselves, because we've been
Yeah,
in some way ripped away from that because of all the external noise and narratives that are going on in society all the time.
yeah. Yes, well, it
Mm-hmm.
is. It's a constant background noise. And if any of your stories aligned with what they're promoting and your
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, then you're going to be kind of dragged into it. And I guess that's why it's essential. I mean, there is no mindfulness or spirituality in your life without stillness. If we're
Mm.
not unpacking what's going on in us or feeling what's going on in us, then we can't see the truth. It's as simple
Oh,
as
that's
that.
so true. That's so true. And I think that's the gray area of things like spirituality and things like meditation, because like the narrative that I hear a lot from people is that, well, I know I'm not a good meditator because I can't make my mind still, or I can't
Yeah.
stop my thoughts, so it prevents a lot of people from diving further into it because they just assume that they can't. But I think one of the best pieces of advice I heard when I got into meditation is that it's not about stopping your thoughts, because that will only happen when you die. So
Exactly.
I think it's more about learning to be a passive observer of them, so that you
Yeah.
can have that mindset and that approach when things like limiting beliefs or insecurities come up for you in the future.
Yeah. Well, they will slow down. That's for sure. They won't go away, but they'll
Mm-hmm.
slow down when we pay less attention to them. So, how do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, in the stillness, you learn to hear those incessant thoughts. That's what people feel uncomfortable about. It's like, I can't not hear the 100 million ideas and thoughts that are coming through. But that's where the discipline comes, is that when you do that every day, when you see and feel and hear those thoughts and don't pay attention to them, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
it really is that's the first step. Pay attention to your breath, pay attention to your um, focus. You might want to
Mm-hmm.
listen to a guided meditation to start with. But so over time, that focus and attention outside of that, those thoughts can only come in, and that mind can only take over when you're participating with it. Okay, so say we're sitting there. I
Mm-hmm.
always give this example to people. As soon as you go into stillness, your mind is is uncomfortable. So it'll go, did you turn the kettle off? Did you shut the front door?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, this is
Mm-hmm.
what happens. So the mind will want you to start being active again. And so our
Mm-hmm.
discipline is saying, I don't care unless the house is on fire. I'm not promoting that. But the mind
Mm-hmm.
will trick you into thinking that there's some urgent things to do. I should send that email now. And so if you're responding and participating to that thought, then you're letting the mind be the master of your life. And so the beginning of spirituality and mindfulness is not paying attention to what is constantly asking you to be active.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was so beautifully said. And I think it sometimes can come as such a blunt reminder because I recently read the book Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that book or Michael
Yeah, I
Singer,
am.
but
Yeah.
it's I think the biggest I think brutal awakening was when he mentions I think the very first chapter is, do you know that you are the consciousness that is recognizing these relentless thoughts and not the thoughts themselves? You know, like I
Yes.
think he phrased it as, you live with a roommate your entire life, which is your mind. You are the consciousness, and your mind is the roommate that just like won't shut up. And you have to learn to tame essentially. And I think that came as such a brutal awakening because I was like, so I'm just consciousness? Like what does that mean?
Yeah.
Um how do I move forward from here? Like you're telling me that it's never like these incessant thoughts have never been me. Like it's a funky duality to come to terms with, but it also puts you I think it makes you feel more in authority of that incessant chatter.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we
Oh, I think we lost you again for a second, Karen. Yeah, I can't hear her. Oh, or is it my Wi-Fi perhaps? No. Yeah, Karen, sorry we lost you. The timer's going, but we can't hear you. Oh no. Okay, we'll give it a couple of seconds. Maybe it'll come back.
Oh, are we back?
There we go. Yeah, we're back. Sorry, it
Oh,
just like the audio cut out for a few
yeah, I
seconds, but
think
you're back.
the Wi-Fi must be just going in and out here. So sorry. It's
No,
annoying when you try.
no, you're all good. I
Yeah,
totally understand. It wouldn't be a talk without some kind of technical difficulty. So you're all
exactly.
good.
Technically, it's so good. You know, when we separate that, I think it's really important as you move into your mindfulness and stillness that you start to separate that that's not you, that those thoughts and those, incessant go here, do this is not you, because you're able to articulate already that that's not you, that you realized you you aren't those thoughts. And how do you know that? Because you'll say, oh, I know when I'm in that mood. I know, but who's watching that person? And I think you have to see the duality of that story. Whereas if
Mm-hmm.
you don't see that, then you're fully immersed in the mind at all times.
Yeah, and it can be so hard because I think that we internalize them so much because we think that
Yeah,
it's us. And the problem is that when we let those thoughts run on loop, then they enter your subconscious mind. So then it becomes even harder, right? So
yeah.
how what do you tell people who are strongly identifying with those thoughts to remove themselves from that identification, I guess, to stop
Yes.
falling trapped to them.
Yeah. Don't pay attention to them because they can only participate with you in it. So when the thought says
Mm-hmm.
go and send that email, the
Mm-hmm.
mind can't work on its own. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
have to be aware that you're participating in that incessant thought pattern. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
sitting there and it says urgently do something, because the mind is always urgent, is always having
Mm-hmm.
to do something quickly.
Yeah.
So when you hear the mind ask you to do something or put a thought in your mind to create something, sit with it for a couple of minutes and say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually not going to do it. And just test the risk taking of that, because it's not until you start becoming the master of that. Actually, treat it like a little 2-year-old that's constantly wanting your attention, that's constantly
Mm-hmm.
wanting you to come here, to go there, to do that, to say that, you must say that, you mustn't say that. And just see it as a 2-year-old that you're going to train to become a mature, disciplined child. And
Mm-hmm.
it is really difficult to do, but once you get good at it, the mind can only participate if you pay attention to it.
Exactly. And I think that's the hardest part, and it's the hardest part. Oh, what am I trying to say? I think the hardest part
Yeah,
is actually getting good at stopping the chatter as soon as it starts, because I find myself in that a lot. Like the chatter is going, and then I feel like I'm firing back at it, and then or for a second I'm like, wait, you can actually silence this if you want to, you know? But I think it's the hardest part to step into that awareness and that control, I think, because
yeah.
sometimes I
Hmm.
think where I struggle is, well, maybe if I stop believing these thoughts, or if I stop listening to these critiques about, oh, your work could be better, or you could have done this better when you did that
Yeah,
interview, or you could have done this better in that assignment, will I become complacent, or will my work quality decrease? So it's tough, because I think there's a guilt aspect to it as well, in my personal experience, at least.
yeah. Well, I think those so let's separate the urgency thought patterns in the mind, like you've got to do this, you've got to say that, as opposed to that ongoing judgment criticizer. And I would say that when that's coming through for me or anyone else, we probably want to look at some healing on that, because that can be
Mm,
a belief system that you grew up being taught, or
mm-hmm,
again that ancestral wounding that we haven't recognized in ourselves. So I think it's not sometimes as easy as just saying, well, it can be as easy as I'm not going to pay attention to them. If you have enough discipline and strength to do that, that probably is one way to do it. But I find there could be some storytelling that we've accumulated in our energy and DNA over time, and sometimes
mm-hmm,
we can just look at that in our body and forgive those people and release that story energetically. I find that's really liberating for myself and for people too.
mm-hmm. How do you release it energetically?
Okay, so we'll go. Normally, there's a story evolved around it. So
Okay.
okay, so here's an example of a client that wasn't feeling
Okay.
like she was doing enough. Oh, am I gone?
No, you're still here. I'm sorry. I just
Oh,
shifted my desk chair. I didn't want it to get in the way of the sound. You're good. You're good.
okay. Um, Sometimes you can talk for like 10 minutes and not see the screen and go, "Hmm, no one heard
That's
that."
that's totally fair. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
But no, you're still here.
Yeah, so she came to see me because she's constantly feeling like she wasn't doing enough, being enough, and that was reflecting in her work. She was having experiences where her bosses were telling her she wasn't doing enough, and it was just this constant rabbit hole and hamster wheel of just doing, and not getting anywhere. And so we went
Mm-hmm.
back to, I said to her, "What was your life like growing up with your brother?" And she said that he was an incredible athlete and he
Mm-hmm.
always did something right, and his parents, their parents, were always praising him and validating him for what he did. And then the one time she came and she had a great time on her swimming race,
Mm-hmm.
she came in to seek validation and praise from her dad, and what he said to her was, it's not as good as your brother's.
Oh,
And
no.
so we came, but see, this
Yeah.
is what we can see how this starts the belief system. And
Mm-hmm.
I can, we can always find it from our upbringing, always. There's
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind. I've always found it in someone, I've found it in myself. And it's really just coming back to, that's not a memory that you know clearly, but an idea of, that's how my mum and dad made me feel. That's what my teacher did that changed the way I thought about myself. And so what we do is we go back to those spaces as
Mm-hmm.
children, and we forgive that experience, and we ask, spirit, God, to release that story. And then
Mm.
the next step is really just hearing those thoughts come in, because they're now there with habit and familiarity. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the discipline comes in, and saying, I'm no longer holding that story, and now I'm moving on, and I'm going to take that away and focus on who I really am.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that approach so much because I think that it's not until you get to the root of, I guess, when you do that root cause analysis that you really understand the,
Mm-hmm.
the reasoning behind your actions. And I'm I want to ask you this question because I think this is something that I have found in myself struggling with is that I think now I'm in a place where I'm quite good at getting to the root cause of certain behaviors as it pertains to childhood or some type of experience that I had that then I guess
Mm-hmm.
instilled be it a belief or an insecurity. But I think what I've realized is that I tend to stay there for some time and I'm like, oh well this happened to me when I was younger, so now I'm like this. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that and allowing yourself to feel be it the frustration or the disappointment or the anger towards I guess the perpetrators that cause that or the
Mm-hmm.
experiences that cause that. But
Yeah.
I guess how long is too long or how soon is too soon in your opinion to hang on to those experiences before you let them go?
Yeah. Well, I would like to think that we let them go in the one session, but what happens
Mm.
is there's layers of it. And so I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like when okay, so how do I know that I've healed it? Well, it's from the experiences that you're having outside of yourself. So you might
Mm.
do an initial healing with someone, and say I've released that, and then some of the layers that are embedded in that DNA then can take some time to unravel and release. And so you might then, a year later or even 2 weeks later, have another experience, almost like a challenge, that someone's
Mm-hmm.
going to come and push on that wound, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
it feels like. Say, and people
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I thought I'd healed this. I thought this had gone." But I
Mm-hmm.
think we have to be patient as we unravel that familiar. Remember, we're familiar with that story. We're familiar with that happening to us. And so we have to learn how to really stand in our truth, and eventually just say, well, that's never going to happen again, because it can be like that. It really can be complete freedom from it. But you do have to work through some of the familiarity. So if you're remembering the trauma, that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, because it is a trauma, and it's part of your, it's being affected in your energy system. So there's going to be certain experiences that are going to trigger that. But I guess it's the mind also wanting to stay there. And I guess again, it's just discipline and patience, that you're going to the story and then you go, no, I'm healing from that. I'm stepping into who I really am. And you're kind of moving through that situation. Does that help?
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful and I think that like you said it's important to remember that our minds will shift into those places of comfort that are familiar,
Yeah.
but because
Yep.
and I think as traumatic as something might have been, because sometimes it's running on loop so much, we
Mm-hmm.
we tend to shift back into it. But I think recognizing that it's okay to step into the new, and that's way easier said than done, of course, but giving ourselves permission to say, this happened, it is as it was, I am allowed and have the birthright to heal. I think the mantra that I've been repeating myself that I heard oh my gosh, what was her name? Martha Beck, the famous author
Hmm.
Martha Beck, say is, I have the right to be at peace. And I think it always, that helps me shift into that mindset of, I can move forward now. This is in the past. It
Yeah,
has no hold on me anymore. And it's a fundamental part of learning to love yourself enough to let go as well.
yeah. Beautiful. And, when we step out of those familiar stories or trauma or I'm not enough stories, we are stepping into a more expansive sense of who we are, which is scary. We
Mm-hmm.
know that story. This is why we stay in it because we're so familiar with it. Of course, I'm not enough. Of course, no matter what I do, it doesn't work. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to just so desperately want to get rid of that, but we're so desperately familiar with it. And so we really have to keep breaking out of that and coming into something that we have not known about ourselves. And so just always remember how long it took for you to have that belief and then be
Mm-hmm.
patient as you come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, time is the best healer of wounds, right? Sometimes it's just about
Hmm.
doing it for a certain period of time until you shift out of that, be it
Yeah.
survival mode or responsive mode, like whatever that is, right? So I'm glad that we're
Hmm.
talking about this because I need to remind myself of that more as I go through my
Yeah.
life.
Yes, it's so important that we're not more compassionate to ourselves, that we're not more loving about that situation, and to hear the thought about the trauma or hear the thought about the belief that came from the trauma, like hear it, recognize it,
Mm-hmm.
and then clearly say no. So think of it
Mm-hmm.
as a guest that comes to the front door. So I'm not enough is coming to the front door again. Let's just use that one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can open it up. This is the thought, and go, hey, yeah, I know you, but you don't have to invite them in and act on it. So if you've done a
Mm-hmm.
job or you're
Mm-hmm.
being creative and those thoughts come in that you're not enough, hear them, say, yeah, I know who you are, and then just shut the door and go and do some affirmations and then or some stillness and remember again who you are. We need reminding. All of us need reminding.
Oh, yeah. I I love that you I love that you say that because it's my I think it's the mantra that I allude to a lot is remember who you are, remember all the work that you've put in. You have the tools, you
Yeah.
have the resources. It's okay to reject it and it's not I think it's unrealistic to expect that we're just going to be able to close the door on it all the time. Sometimes it's going to keep knocking, right? But
Hmm.
there's I think the maybe the ideal spot that we want to get to is it can keep knocking, but we with the tools that we build, it'll get quieter eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, it will stop knocking. I promise. It does. I absolutely guarantee you that. The only reason it's knocking is because part of you still believes that. So if you don't
Mm-hmm.
answer it, the people that knock at your door that you don't want to answer the door to, just say some, traveling salesman that wants to do something. I mean, eventually they go away. You know that. And that's what
Yeah.
happens to the thoughts. If you're not paying attention to them, if you're not participating in them, they will eventually go away. But that is what the practice is because you sometimes subconsciously are opening the door, going, sure, come in. And then you have a cup of tea with them, and then sure, why don't you stay the night? Sure. And now all of a sudden they're living there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the idea that you don't have to dive into every feeling that comes up for you, right? Because
No.
I'm very I'm very introspective in that sense. Like as soon as I feel, be it some kind of like imposter syndrome associated thought or like a negative belief about you're not enough, I'm like, oh well, why don't I think I'm enough? And then I tell myself, okay, I'm gonna do this deep work, and then and then it just overfloods
Mm,
me. So I think it's hard because we're not in,
yes.
we shouldn't feel the need to dive into every feeling just because it comes up for us, but it's so hard to at the same time, right?
Yes, I think you're making a really good point because we're told to listen to our feelings, to tune into our feelings, but I would say they're passing, that no feeling is ever final. So test it out, that feeling comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and I never say don't listen to it because it could be your body giving you intuition or a sign, but there'll be a time where you will know that you don't need to spend any more energy on that, especially if you've had a healing, you've addressed it, and you know that that's your Achilles heel. If you know that that's your
Mm-hmm.
shadow, then you really don't need to, and you've done the work on it. The next step is to really ignore that and not pay attention to it. So that again, that intuition, is it anxiety? Is it intuition? You really just need to test it out and see how you feel after you've, like you said, you've spent too long thinking about it again. And it's the mind is clever about drawing you back into the story and keeping you there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because again, the mind craves comfort, and it will try to shift into those patterns of comfort if you give it the space to. So, oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this because it's such an important reminder that I think I only recently discovered and heard the idea that we don't have to
Yeah,
address every feeling, which can be uncomfortable, like you said, because we're told now to, don't ignore your thoughts, like pay attention to your feelings, it's your intuition. But sometimes, like, your intuition is
yeah.
biased, I think.
Well, I think sometimes you've just got to separate again. Is that my mind, like trying to bring
Mm-hmm.
into that story? And again, if we're participating in it on the wrong level, like that, oh, yeah, that's right. I probably need to do another healing. So people can just do constant healings all the time. So you're never ever getting anywhere because the mind is going, well, you'll never end it. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there is no easy this step, this step, this step, but perhaps just letting yourself not pay attention to it over a long time and
Mm-hmm.
see how you feel. See how you feel when you pay attention to it all day and really like
Mm-hmm.
sitting there, oh, I'm feeling really bad. I'm feeling really bad. Like honestly, normally you don't feel good. And then see how
Mm-hmm.
you feel when you're ignoring perhaps the story about it and moving into that. And see, then you can get caught ignoring things. And this is what I'm saying. There's this really fine thread about this that people will go, oh, I'm feeling really fearful at the moment. I'm just going to ignore that because I'm strong. And sometimes we need to address those things too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a fine balance
Mm,
between the ignoring and the addressing, I think. And I think it can be
yeah.
hard to know when to do which, because if the thought is constantly knocking on your door, like we said, is it because it's your mind shifting into comfort, or is it because it's something that you need to address? How do
Yes.
you think we can tell the difference?
Okay. So if you're having this, even if it's not a knock at the door, let's have a look at our outside experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
perhaps you're attracting in a partner who's abusing you, and then you say to yourself, you know what, I don't need to put up with this. I'm just going to stop seeing this person, right? To say that you
Mm-hmm.
decide to be strong about that. And then you do no self-reflecting about why that has happened to you. So you ignore it, and then you go on the dating app and you find another guy, and guess what? He's got the same
Mm-hmm.
qualities that are reflecting in you. Now, this could just be a wound from the past about you not, being scared around chaos or anger, or that you grew up with anger. It could just be anything. But what I'm saying is when your outside experiences continue to repeat the same similar, I would say that's a time where you need to look within to work out what needs
Mm.
to be shifted or healed in you so that you don't keep on having that experience.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry,
mhm.
keep going. I think I cut you off.
Yeah, no, you didn't. No, opposed to, oh, I remember when my dad was like that with me. God,
Mm-hmm.
I just like I'm really angry at him for that, and that that's not so much something you have to really, really delve into if you've looked into it. So
Yeah.
maybe here's the example. If your outside experiences, people keep showing you the same thing about yourself, why no matter what I do, like that girl that came to see me, everyone in her work experience kept telling her she wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that's constantly happening, I would say that's a big, big red flag. You need to go in and shift something that's happened to you.
Yeah, totally. It's the, oh, that was so wonderful, and that, like, my eyes are bulging right now because I think it is the it's law of attraction at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
Whatever
it
is,
is.
whatever vibration that you're vibrating at internally, whatever frequency you're emitting from the inside, whether you're aware of it or not, is going to manifest your reality ultimately. So
Yeah,
I think, and I think that's, I think going back to my point about how do you know when you stayed in the
yeah,
past too long or when you have been, I think you're alluding to the same narrative for too long. It's when your either present is not changing or you're seeing that pain reflected in other parts of your life as well.
yeah.
Oh
It's kind of
man,
like, yeah, I
so
think
good.
look at the other one. Yeah, it is really powerful when you know that this is what's happening. And I think the other one could be in line with self-indulgence. You know, that,
Mm,
well, nobody
mhm.
knows what I've been through, and why is that? And that's self-indulging in a story that you've healed, and you just need to stop participating in it. Whereas opposed to, oh my God, why does this keep happening to me? I can't understand it. That's when you need to go, maybe I should, talk about this or be with someone that can open up a story in me. So don't miss that, because you then really become the victim of your life, because you
Mhm.
can't see how these people are actually your teachers. As much as they're
Oh my
hurting
gosh,
you,
yeah.
they're your teachers.
Yeah, and it's I think it's the idea that we we can choose how we respond to our situations and our circumstances by the
Yeah,
attitude that we take on towards them. So, are we going to keep being a victim to our environment and approaching our environment and our circumstances with the same mindset of that the part of us that is hurt, the part of us that is maybe needing pity of some sort from ourselves or from other people? Or
mm,
can we shift into that expansiveness of, well, I'm allowed to move forward. What does this have to show me?
yeah. And don't forget, there's drama and chaos in that victimhood too. So you could be
Mm-hmm.
getting a lot of attention that way as well. And so people would say, oh my God, this keeps happening to this poor girl. Like, wonder what it is. And get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
attention from people who are trying to save her. But she's the only one who can save her. And, we've all done it. We've all given advice to people who are in the victim mentality. We've all given them strategies and possibilities of coming through
Mm-hmm.
it, and they are just loving it. And so I
Yeah.
guess as the person who's trying to save that person all the time, that would be really reflective of why you're doing that. So it can work both ways, the victim mentality and the person around them that continues to try and save them and fix them.
Yeah. That's so that's so true, and I resonate with that so much because I think I was always that person in my teenage years. Um, I was always the friend that was trying to do the saving and be
Yeah.
the, because I mean it's twofold, right? I think in some way it was having the pride and the dignity to say, "Oh yeah, I'm the go-to," because I think it's something that is so orchestrated and uh, looked up at in our society now. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
if you're the go-to, like, you know, you must know so much
Yeah.
and you're a confidant, and like it is a wonderful feeling, but
Mm.
how many of your friends are coming to you to listen to what you have to say and then put in the work? Or how
Yeah.
many of your friends are depending on you to solve their problems or relying on you to pull them out of their misery? And the other side of that that I realized in therapy, speaking to my therapist recently, was that in in my childhood years I've always been used to being the mediator in my family and my friendships. It's like, I guess, taking on the caregiver role. So in
Yeah.
some way it's a trauma response too, right? Of, I need to keep
Mm-hmm.
control, I need to make sure nobody's getting hurt, I need to minimize the collateral damage. So I like that you bring up that point because I think that it's tied to societal narratives, but it's also tied in some way to our upbringing as well.
Yeah, beautifully said, Mariana. And acknowledging and understanding that habit and familiarity that you did to survive. It is a trauma response, and it takes a lot of energy to give out that gold and that wisdom to people, which I'm sure you were at the time. and they
Mm-hmm.
throw it back in your face by not doing anything about it. And I
Yeah, it's
think you
exhausting.
become, yeah, it is exhausting. Trying to hold that space for other people is exhausting, and it's not your responsibility. But when you grew up, you were given that, and then people, praised you for it. And then you feel needed when, like, the endorphins come in through it. The reason why you did it is because you felt needed and loved. Gosh, we all did things to get that. We all
Yeah.
wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it however we needed to do it at the time from the way we were living. And that is a really normal response to that trauma or those experiences we had. As we come aware of ourselves and who we really are, we start to see these patterns that are no longer serving us. And saving people takes so much energy away from you and what you need. And yet these people are just throwing what you're giving them in the bin, and it's awful. So, in the
Yeah.
end, it's our energy that's so compromised that perhaps getting sick or feeling flat is why we learn to change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, it definitely it takes getting to the extreme sometimes to really learn that a change must be made. And unfortunately, I think some of us learn that the hard way for sure. I think as we grow, we learn to read the signs a bit better of okay, I need to back out. But I don't know if
Mm,
this has been your experience or anybody else who's listening, but I think that's been one of the greatest aspects of entering spirituality for me has been not feeling that need to be the savior all the time because I think that spirituality has filled that space in me that perhaps wasn't whole before or felt that need to get validation in some way. And it's
yes,
been
yes.
so powerful to observe how stepping into yourself and loving yourself and befriending yourself decreases those external needs that you may have once had.
Mm. So when you ask that question, what's in it for me? So say you're doing something that you know is not, that's compromising you and who you are. Ask
Mm-hmm.
yourself, what are you receiving from this? And it's always a reward. It's always a
Mm-hmm.
reward. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep doing it. So
Yeah.
if you are the
Mm-hmm.
victim, you're getting the attention that you need. If you are the one saving them, you're feeling needed. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
understand that and start working through, whoa, I actually don't need that needy. I need me.
Mm-hmm.
I need me. I need me to look at me and love me. And from there, you become such a great light being in this world to receiving and giving in a really balanced, harmonious way. And that's the ultimate, isn't it? Is to give and receive in those ways that is equal. And when
Yeah.
you're feeling full about who you are, when you're feeling full about your true self, giving is not even a thought. Giving is just being you in that lightness. And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we should question, why are we going outside of ourselves to do this? Just question it. Say, oh, I'm just going to go over and help those person. Like, just hold up. do
Mm-hmm.
you need to do you need to do that right now? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of reward in doing it. There's a lot of reward, but it may not be what you need to do. And so just pause for a minute and say, is this something I need to do?
Yeah, or can I give to this person without pouring from my own cup? Can I encourage them to
Mm,
grow in some way? And I think what you mentioned about actually stopping yourself before you dive all in to helping somebody
yeah,
is it's important to take that pause to ask yourself why you're engaging with it and what you are
yeah,
hoping in return because so
hmm,
often it is validation or wanting a status upgrade in our friend groups or something but
yeah,
engaging in that for a certain amount of time will only amount to it becoming a negative habit cycle. So,
yeah. It's
mm-hmm,
true. The questions are important, but also, I guess another way that I can suggest is that when you're giving out too much and people aren't responding the way your consciousness wants to be responded, there's a lot of resentment. So that's always a really good
oh
sign to me
yeah,
that I'm probably stepping outside of what I need to be doing. So I've cleaned your room, I've done the dishes, I've prepared the meal, and everyone just goes, yeah, whatever. And then I go, are you right? Like, did you not
mm-hmm,
see what I just did for you? That's a sign for me to step back and say, what are you giving out that you don't need to?
mm-hmm. Oh, it's so huge because I think that we are creatures of that are we're inclined to give because it's in our nature, but it's also so in our nature to receive because we are, that's just how our dopamine reward system works, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
it's it is hard to, and I think it's unrealistic to expect that through mindfulness we can step into a place in which we can give without ever receiving something or without ever expecting something in return. Because I think that you have the right to receive what you're putting out into the world, but I think that when you're not getting that in return, again, it's about doing the inner work to say, okay, what is my external reality reflecting about what's going on in here as it pertains to maybe how I see myself, how I value my worth, or how I perceive the people are receiving what I'm giving them at the end of the day.
yeah, that's right. Question, if you're not feeling validated, if you're not feeling like you're receiving back in a way, I think it's really important to just spend some time contemplating why that is, and then seeing the belief systems that you're putting out or the energy that you're putting out. Because when you're full, you naturally want to give. I promise that. When you're full, you naturally want to give out. You're hungry to give out. And in actual fact, eventually you don't really look for that validation because you are the validation of being full. It's a fine line to get to, but I I think we can definitely get there in those spaces. So the most important aspect of every day is, where am I filling up my cup first? Where am I nurturing my needs first? And then your balance of the giving out will come into alignment, never the other way around.
Oh my gosh. I really hope that people who are listening are writing this down because I am soaking this all in so much, Karen. Thank you for everything that you're putting on the table, and I hope that you're not pouring from your own cup as you're saying these things.
No, no, and there's a card in tarot, because I love doing my cards for people.
Oh,
But there's a
okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I really love it. But there's a card in tarot, the Four of Cups, where he's sitting by a tree. This is a really good picture that we can have when we're feeling flat. And there's this fullness of this cup, but he's sitting by the cup is right in front of him and it's being offered to him. But he's sitting up against the tree in his own story, in his own familiarity or trauma. And he's not recognizing that this cup is here for him in that space. And it's such a beautiful understanding of when you're not receiving what you need, and I have felt this many times, the cup is always here. The fullness of life and love and abundance is right in front of us, within us, within us. And we just have to take the time to recognize it and to fill it up and to see the fullness here. This is the only way that will come out of those stories. So when we're feeling in that space, remember that picture that you may not feel it, you may feel alone, you may feel isolated, but I promise you that fullness is there to take if you allow it.
Oh my God, that's such a beautiful reminder that I think so many people need to hear is that you can choose happiness. And I think what
Mm,
I've had to remind myself is that you can feel pain while still living from a place of joy in your day to
mm-hmm,
day, right? Like you can there's merit and there's a beauty in allowing yourself to feel pain about whatever is hurting you in that moment, but putting your faith in that over this hill, there is beauty on the other side. And you
yeah.
know, as humans, we run on hope, we run on feelings of purpose, we run on the the ambition for something better. And I think that that is such a important way and a beautiful reminder about how we can get in realignment with ourselves is by recognizing that the abundance is always there. It's just about believing in it and tapping into it through, but ultimately we have to do that through ourselves and through doing that, the inner work to
Mm,
to to know what that abundance means for us, right? Because that abundance means something different for everybody, but the cup is always full if we choose to do the work to get it, really.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I always encourage nature, because in the wonder of it, when you're feeling really flat, when you're feeling isolated, go and sit in nature. Just the vibration of it will help align with your true vibration. But also, then in
Mm-hmm.
nature, you can start to see the beauty again. It's all the simpleness. See, sometimes while we're getting lost in our pain, it's because we're only looking at something big that we want to happen, and we're
Mm-hmm.
missing all those little beautiful transformations that are going on underneath. And so what you said before was, I've forgotten where I've come from. I've forgotten how
Mm-hmm.
far that I've transcended from something.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be so hard on yourself. And so when you're sitting in nature and a butterfly comes around, or the fish jumps out of the water, or the birds, like, just remember the simpleness and the wonder of and the fullness of life as that, rather than these really big things that you're hoping to see. And in the meantime, while you're only hoping for the big things, you're missing all those beautiful transformations and movements that's
Mm-hmm.
happening in you.
Exactly. Like you said, nature is always moving, and it's so
Yeah.
important to direct our energy to that belief and that knowing. So, oh, I love it,
Yeah.
Karen. That was so beautiful, and I think that's a perfect note to end on because I know we are just past an hour
Yeah.
now. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Yes.
this beautiful conversation, for all your insight and your wisdom. This was I feel my cup is certainly full right now. So thank you so
Beautiful.
much for hopping on, for providing us with your beautiful your words and your insight, and I'm so full. Thank you so much for this.
Yes, and thank you, Mariana. And I've always, from the moment I met you, I said to you, your energy is so alive and beautiful, and you are going to do some amazing things in this world. And
Oh, thank you.
I totally believe that. And thank you for holding this space, that we're both talking about something that we really love. And many blessings to you.
Oh, you too. That means so much. Thank you so much, and I look forward to future conversations as well.
Yeah, amen. Thanks. Bye. Have
Thank
a great
you.
day.
You too. Thank you. All right, that was Karen Lang, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that stayed the entire time, such a beautiful soul, such a beautiful person. I don't know if you can hear the smile on my face right now, but it's big and it's there. So I hope you all took as much away from that conversation as I did, because I will definitely be going back and listening to more of it and just replaying it to always have that reminder of stepping into yourself, reminding yourself who you are, and that the cup is always full if you choose to see it that way, through attitude, through faith in yourself. So I hope everybody has a lovely rest of your day, a lovely rest of your evening. Happy Tuesday. And I will see you on the next chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much again for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that conversation just as much as I did. It was so valuable. It was so profound. Karen is such an incredible person. And if you want more from Karen, if you want to see more from Karen, I have linked all her social media accounts in the show notes of today's episode. So make sure to check her out. Make sure to purchase her book, because I'm sure that if you took as much away from that conversation, you will take even more away from her beautiful work from her books. So with that all being said, thank you again for tuning in. It was such an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for choosing the Commitment to Growth podcast as your daily source of wisdom and personal growth. And I am so excited to be supporting you on this journey towards you becoming your future self. And to get regular updates from me, from the podcast, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Commitment to Growth Podcast. I post all the upcoming episodes there. I tell you when I'm having talks on wisdom if you happen to be on that platform. And if you want further support from me in your week to week, I do have a newsletter called the Commitment to Growth newsletter. It comes out every Thursday, and I send articles and videos and quotes there every single week on personal growth and development that are tied to the theme of the episode. So because this week we discussed spirituality and mindfulness with Karen, then this week's newsletter would be all resources as they pertain to spirituality and mindfulness as well, and how to help you further implement those beautiful self-development practices into your week and your daily routine. So that you can find that on my Instagram bio. Enter your email, subscribe, and you can hear more from me if you haven't had enough from me. And I think that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much again. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you in the next episode.